from singing in the choir when she was 2 years old from Van Buren, Arkansas.
Well, in 1995, I was going to UC Santa Cruz, and I was in a kind of pre-film studies program that I didn't relate to at all. It was after really looking forward to it for a long time. The intro classes that I was taking were mostly guys, and I felt really disappointed. But meanwhile, up in the Pacific Northwest, in Portland and Olympia, there were all these girls doing things, not making movies really, but starting bands and record labels, and so I dropped out of school and I moved up there, and I did join a band, started a band, but I couldn't really sing, and what I really wanted to do was figure out how to make movies and how to create some kind of network that really inspired me to do that. And I had this fantasy that I wasn't alone, that there were girls and women all over the country who were also seeking this. So I made a pamphlet. I sat down and kind of using the Riot Girl revolution enthusiasm of the time, I invited other women to send me their movies through this pamphlet.
It's a project I started about 3 years ago now. And the basic mechanism inside it is that any woman who sends me a movie that she made, I take it and I put it on a tape with 9 other movies made by women from all over the place, and I send that tape back to her so that she can see what 9 other women are doing and so that they can see her movie, and it's incredibly simple.
I would pass out this pamphlet at shows, I'd leave it in schools, I'd give it to bands to take on tour with them, like Bikini Kill. Would hand it out at shows.
She worked really, really, really hard on it and was really tireless about promoting it, talking about it, thinking through it conceptually.
I sort of lied a lot. I mean, I had a lot of bluster. I would make it sound like a movement. Like if I had no movies, which I did for a long time, I'd say, the first one came in, it's really good.
I helped her write this grant. Her very first grant she ever did write was for this Portland-based Regional Arts and Culture Council grant. And I actually just dug up the form a couple days ago and re-looked at it again. And at this point, she was dubbing the tapes on 2 used VCRs, like VCR to VCR. I mean, so the quality was really terrible. It was degrading every time she did it. And this is just because she's doing it in her apartment. She has no money. So she applied to get the tapes professionally dubbed. And the amount that she asked for was $600. So just these really modest sums. But for her, that was like a huge amount of money at the time. Seemed like shooting for the stars. And in fact, I don't actually think she got that grant.
Welcome to Big Miss Moviola. My name is Miranda July, and I'll be your host. As you can see, we have grown tremendously since we began operation in 1995. In just 3 short years, Big Miss Moviola has become a monster-like force in the transnational lady-made movie scene. There is no stopping us.
I'm really glad I was part of the Jenny for Jackie chain letter, because it was really amazing to see these films come from towns and women that I would never in a million years meet. There were people that were so far out of my orbit, and it was pretty amazing to get I guess it was a VHS at that time, to get a VHS in the mail. That was somebody from Atlanta that worked at a gas station, and I love that we all got connected that way.
This idea that it wasn't necessarily going to be about museums, galleries, or those kinds of spaces, that it was for each other.
As is often the case, the person sort of throwing the party or starting the crying the call to arms is actually totally alone. And I think I felt really isolated and poor and I didn't have much of a place in the world yet. I mean, I was just in my early 20s. So I think the project was also a great comfort to me. I was sort of inventing a place for myself to be and for other women to be.
And because Big Miss Moviola is the size of a small town, we even have our own post office. Good to see you.
You've got
I was going to the post office kind of recreationally, you know, a lot more often than was actually necessary, since I'd only get, you know, a piece of mail like every, you know, few weeks. But gradually that started to change, and bit by bit, ever so slowly, there began to be a momentum. The technology and the culture started to change too, so it actually became easier for everyone to make movies.
I stumbled upon Joni for Jackie as a young teenager growing up in a small town, just searching for a little more, searching for something that you identify with. On the Joni for Jackie website, it was like exactly what I had been searching for, and so it was really exciting. I ordered chain letters and co-star tapes and watched them.
These are all the movies that I've received, or some of them. Some of them aren't here. There's the Tell a Terrific chain letter, the Break My chain letter, Velvet chain letter.
Once I had these movies, it seemed immediately obvious that I should screen them. I should show them all over. I especially wanted to show them in places that wouldn't usually have screenings like that, like high schools and rock clubs. And so I wrote a grant, and with the money I got from the grant, I bought a video projector, which was pretty exciting. I would carry it around with me in the little case and set it up and show these movies, and I would usually do some of my own performance also at like a college, and then that would kind of, I'd actually get paid for that, and it could kind of finance the whole tour.
My friend J.D. Sampson and I ran an experimental film festival at Sarah Lawrence College, and we had no idea what we were doing, and like pulled the whole thing out of our ass pretty much, and ended up having Miranda fly out.
So I went to Bard College in upstate New York, and one of the people we brought was Miranda, and I got to hang out with her and talk to her before the presentation that she did.
So we're going to show some movies, and then Wynn and Sally, who are also movie makers and I met through the project, are going to perform their live movie, and I'm going to perform some, and it's just going to go on and on.
And when I would show the movies at the colleges, there would be women who would think, oh, I want to do that, you know, but rather than drop out like I did, they would ask to intern with me, like be a summer intern, which usually their college would sort of require and pay for, which was really bizarre and exciting to me, especially at the beginning, because I was actually really the same age as the women who were interning for me. So it was like having a friend help me for the summer.
I didn't want to go home to my small town for the summer, so I asked her if I could intern for her, and she said yes. And so I lived in Portland for the summer and worked on Joni for Jackie things and made a chain letter.
And the great thing was that they could spend the summer making a tape that they could really, you know, sign their name to along with mine, and make the booklet and make the introduction. So each summer for many years, I would collaborate with, you know, another woman on making one chain letter tape.
One of the movies I'm showing is called The Slow Escape, which was sent to me last December by a woman named Sativa Peterson, and it's incredible. I was like, oh my God, like, you have no fucking idea, you know, and so right away I knew it would be on this tape. And the weird thing is Sativa moved here. So you want to stand up for just a sec? Sativa? Oh, I'm like pointing this woman over here. There's Sativa.
The best part of the project for me was that I was meeting all these other women filmmakers. I mean, I began to have this feeling that I really wasn't alone at all, and I began to finally make movies myself. And that inspiration was really direct. I mean, I would show movies, meet some women after the screening, like I remember meeting Carolyn Cooley and Zoe Kroll, and we'd become pen pals, and then I'd come back to San Francisco and spend the night at their house. At the same time that I was meeting all these interesting women filmmakers, I was also beginning to get a pretty clear picture of who wasn't making movies, because of course most of the movies that I got were made by women in college.
And there were, of course, all the reasons why women didn't feel like they could or should make videos themselves. And there were a million different reasons, and some of those were economic, some of those had to do with kind of class privilege or access, education. And so the Missing Movie Report was really a way to kind of document the lack of making, the lack of practice. I mean, I think that project still is very haunting to me, and the answers that she got, doing these interviews on the street in Portland are really very moving.
The idea of the Missing Movie Report was actually that other people could make reports, send in the report from their town. What are the movies that aren't being made in your town? What are the stories that aren't being told? I was sort of trying to create like a line around that negative space of what didn't exist so that it could affect us, because those were the movies that I most wanted to be influenced by.
Again, it's a really, really hard problem to solve because gender is so nuanced. It's like small and quiet and subtle and reinforced every minute of every day in these really subtle ways. There aren't like rules and laws that say that there aren't going to be female directors, but there really aren't that many. One
reason why a woman would be more likely to, say, write in her journal than make a movie is just the technology. I mean, it still seems a little bit complicated, and so I was always trying to find ways to make it clear how actually pretty easy it is and fun. One thing I would do is every time I screened movies, I would also try and make a movie with the audience. I'd set up a camera in a closet or in a bathroom of the theater, and during the intermission I'd ask people to go into the closet one by one and press record and finish the sentence that began with, "Nobody ever told me."
Nobody ever told me it was okay to look like this. Nobody ever told me it was alright. Nobody ever told me. I had to tell myself. Nobody ever told me it was okay to look like this. I had to tell myself.
At the end of the screening, I would rewind the tape and screen it and play it back. And it was always so satisfying to watch people watch themselves and their friends and get this kind of immediate pleasure. And it made me feel like, yeah, see, that's all we're talking about here. We're just talking about getting it down in the moment.
Now you're probably wondering, how do we get the energy to maintain such a vast and modern facility? The answer is simple: the Big Miss Moviola power plant. Which reminds me, I'm due for a recharge. So enjoy the movies and don't forget to send yours.
About 9 years into the project, I began to realize that it was too much for me finally to do alongside all my other work. But I didn't want to end it. I felt like there would always be some girl in her early 20s for whom it was really important and vital. And I thought that running the project itself was kind of one of the best parts of it, and that if I could just hand that over to someone about 10 years younger, and then the project could always keep going.
She told me that she needed someone to sort of take over the project, and so we decided that I would help move the project to Bard, and so we kind of instituted a program there at Bard, and yeah.
They have the archives and all the letters and posters, and so there's always a new crop of women who were the same age I was when I started it, who can continue to make chain letter tapes, and they do. I think they've made at least 4 new tapes, which are now actually DVDs. I mean, the problem with Hollywood, and it's so clear to me now that I'm kind of inside of it, is that it's totally irrelevant to most people. It doesn't matter how creative or how good a story you have. The actual system for making the movies is not inspiring, it's not creative, and it's completely divorced from most people's lives and the way that most people go about making things.
I think that Johnny for Jackie was just something special and different and kind of sacred. Like, it was just a little pot of like love and hope or something. It's nice.